I'm Jennifer Purcell, and welcome to my podcast, Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge, where we will discuss, discover, and learn more about the challenges and triumphs of those with NLD and other learning challenges. I do have a website for this podcast, and it is called livingwithnld.com. I also have a Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter account for the podcast. They are all under the same name, which is Living with NLD. I also have a YouTube channel for the podcast, which can be found by Googling the title of the podcast, which is Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge. I would like to tell you about a nonprofit that I use for my research for this podcast. It is called the NLD Project, and I use their blog for my research. They are a nonprofit that is based in New York and is trying to get NVLD back on the DSM, and they provide many resources for people with NVLD on their website. I'll provide you with the website for them in the podcast description. All proceeds from the ads on this podcast will be donated towards the NVLD project. Please feel free to explore the other topics on the podcast, and hopefully you will learn something new from them. I hope you enjoy today's episodes. And I moved the Facebook chat to tomorrow because I was going to have it be last Saturday, but I wanted to go surfing with my brother, who surprised me by being in town to celebrate my 1-year anniversary of starting the podcast. So I moved it to tomorrow. So it will be from 10 a.m. Pacific time zone to 11:30 a.m. Pacific time zone on Facebook. And if you want to be a part of it, please email me at livingwithnld@gmail.com or message me on Facebook on Living with NLD, or you can also message me directly, Jennifer Purcell, and I do have my middle name in there, Lynn, with an E at the end on Facebook, and I will reply, and I will see if I can get you on there. All right, thanks, bye. Again, it's from 10 to 11:30 Pacific time zone tomorrow. Hope to see you there. Bye. Hi, so today is the last and final part of Brian's interview about his life with NLD and ADHD. So you will learn more about that. And at the end, he asked me some questions about interviewing more people with NLD and other learning challenges. Please don't take this answer that I gave as a criticism of how you did during the interview if I interviewed you. I enjoyed all the interviews I have done, even more than I thought I was going to when I started the interview process. I just wanted to let you know that because I was questioning whether to put the feedback that I gave him in the interview that I wanted to publish today. But I decided, you know what? I'm going to let my audience hear it because they might be curious, and I think it's a good thing for them to hear, and I would like them to be able to hear it and just let them know that I do try to edit their interview in a very considerate manner and do it in the way that they ask me to do it if they don't want something to be included in there for some reason. So I hope you enjoy the rest of Ryan's interview today. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, at least you have a job right now, because a lot of the problem with COVID is, 90% of all businesses requires human interaction.
Right.
And that's the reason why they shut down. Restaurants, bars, sports stadiums, anything, you name it. So that's the reason why it's affecting the whole broad spectrum of the job market across North America, Canada included.
Yes, you're right. And I would say that, you know, I am fortunate that I have a job, and I would also say that, you know, I'm fortunate that I like the job that I have, and you know, my parents are they like that I'm working for them, and that I it, you know, I remember my mom saying to me that she's like, you know, I might want to keep you forever or for a while, and not because I do a lot for her. And, you know, I'm the administrative assistant, and I also help manage the website that she has, and the app, and the basically all the tech stuff. And she uh, and I also help with some of the social media things, and um, she does some of it too, but I try to do most of it so that she can do what her so that she can do her job.
Because your mother is a minister, right?
Correct. She is a minister.
Makes sense because I saw the picture. It says Reverend. So
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I guess, you know, I'm fortunate where I'm able to have a career that, you know, that actually I could see myself, you know, working for my parents for the rest of my life, and having the podcast business uh, as the second job, um, which would be, I think it would be a cool combination. So,
yeah, no, I can see myself going to the finance route right now because I don't know. I'm kind of between either going to the finance route because
mhm.
I'm really good financially, or maybe the social work group aspect because of trying to help the VLD community like you are. But I'm kind of split between that,
Mhm.
like because I want to have a job where it's meaningful, hence the social work part, but also pays me a well living wage, which is hence the finance because like I'm doing pretty good right now with my job and investing in stocks and market. But the problem is I don't want to do that for the rest of my life because I want to have some meaning. Because right now, I'm financially successful, but when it comes to emotional fulfillment, I'm struggling with that.
Mm. Do you have
Uh,
any idea what you might do in terms of the social aspect with the job?
I really don't know. I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I was just curious. Um, well, I think we're basically at the end here, unless you want to ask me any more questions.
How many NVIDIAs have you met or interviewed?
Um, oh, that's a good question. I, 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 I'm trying to remember how many, because I've done quite a few now. I think I've done probably it's probably coming to about 20, I would say.
Okay, so you do have experience around meeting with NVIDIAs.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
So I would like to ask you, what is the general common issues you see with all NVIDIAs, and what do you see that is really broad and interesting with the different NVIDIAs that you met and interviewed?
That's a good question. I would say one of the main challenges would probably be that sometimes, um, you know, sometimes with the interviewing aspect, sometimes with, you know, with the length of the interview, sometimes it goes a little long, but that's actually good, because then I have a lot of material for the podcast, and um, I've gotten better at editing it and being able to make it function and work for the podcast. So that's actually not as much of an issue as it used to be in the beginning of the podcast. Because I remember the first interview that I did, it was really long, and I didn't edit it because I didn't know how to. But I would say maybe more the issue currently would be that maybe sometimes, uh, you asked a really good question because you're stumping me. I don't know if there is an issue now, because I've gone better answering. I've gone better at asking the questions, and the people that I'm interviewing have gone better at doing that themselves. Um, Maybe I've just gotten lucky with the people that I've interviewed. um, but you asked two questions. What was the other question?
No, the one was the common issue you see with NVODers that you interview.
Oh, okay.
And out of all the 20 ones, which ones did you find that is a common issue with all of them, and what separates all of them, in your opinion, that makes them successful and non-successful?
I guess what makes them successful would be that they're willing to do the interview, because, you have to be willing to be open about your life with NLD, because it, it can be hard to answer the questions, because, sometimes it can be challenging to answer them because of maybe of your experience of having NLD, and sometimes it can be private questions, depending on what your life is with NLD, and also I would say what makes it what some what sometimes made what made the interview not successful, it would be, uh, I guess, would be sometimes when the interviews went off on tangents that I didn't expect them to go on. What I would say.
And I have that too. And when you try to cut them off, have you ever met with defensive aggression? Sometimes I had that happen to me a few times.
Um, n- Not really, because I usually I try to handle that pretty well, and um, I kind of just tried to steer them back towards the interview by asking a question that I was planning to ask them, and usually they take it pretty well, and I don't, I've never had aggression happen towards me. Um, so like I said, I've gotten lucky. Um, so um, but you were saying that you've had somebody that, like, you've had aggression when you try to cut somebody off.
I had that few happen a few times with some NVODers with comorbid ADHD themselves, because they're so used to, like, the frustrating part about dealing with some of those NVODers. I'm not saying that it's bad, but it's just frustrating for me, is that, you're going on a tangent talking about one subject for 10 minutes long and not minding. And again, this is a social cue that they struggle with, but not me. And this is another NVOD social cues that I'm mostly fine
Mm-hmm.
with NVODers that have ADHD, not the ones that don't. Like, I'm not sure if you do have ADHD on the side or you don't for your own diagnosis.
For me, I was only diagnosed with NLD. I've only interviewed with one person who had NLD and ADHD, other than you. Um, so um, I I guess I can say I don't have as much experience when it comes to interviewing some people that have NLD and some and another learning disability. But I do try to interview people that have more than just NLD, because then it makes it more it makes the interview more interesting, you could say.
Yeah. So what I was gonna say is that I find that during those particular groups of NBODers with ADHD, is that they tend to like. I do it sometimes, especially when I get really like emotionally incensed about a subject. Then I find myself rambling, but most of the time, I find they talk like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then without giving like straight, without allowing me to talk at all, intersect. When I try to intersect, they get really defensive. They're like, "Oh, let me talk.
Mhm.
I'm just haven't finished yet." And it's just like, okay, well, I tell them that, such and such, you have been talking for 10, 15 minutes. You haven't allowed me to talk. This is a social boundary. You need to please be aware that you need to allow people to talk back and forth. So there's a conversation and respect of the other person who's engaging in you in the conversation. So then you don't really try to take over the conversation.
Yeah, I can definitely relate with that too, because I know sometimes when I've been talking with um with my friends, I know that I have to be aware of how long I'm talking, because sometimes I think I talk too much and I don't want to monopolize the conversation. So I try to be aware of that too. So I can relate to what you were saying about that.
Yeah, I mean,
And also, I think you kind of already got at this question with the personal finance about your proudest accomplishment. But if I'm wrong about that, it, is that your proudest accomplishment, or is there something
yeah,
else?
that is my proudest accomplishments.
That's what I thought when you were talking about it, because you
Yeah,
were saying you were proud about that. Um, and I would say that that is definitely one of mine too, because I've been working hard on that recently as well. For me, the other one is graduating from college, because um, I was the first woman in my family to go to college and graduate from college, and to do that with NLD, that makes it even harder.
it is. Did you go to did you go to university or did you go to like post secondary like community college?
So I did go to university. I went to UC Berkeley. Um,
Okay.
yeah, not an easy school to go to.
And what did you graduate with?
I graduated with a BA in sociology.
Okay.
Um, and I also had a minor in environmental science.
Okay. So I'm not sure what. Not trying to criticize you. I'm just trying to be realistic. So please don't take this the wrong way. But may I ask, like, what's your career outlook like with a sociology degree, or do you need to like literally upgrade it to like a graduate school, like for example, get into law or something else to make that degree work for you when it comes to going to school, investing 4 years of your college and tuition to get that BA?
No, that's a good question, because I there are different choices I have. I could go back and get a master's if I wanted to do something like a social worker. Um, Sometimes it depends on the company that you work for that. You don't always need a master's degree. Um, or um, I also have the choice to um, do uh, a different, or to basically stick with the degree that I have and try to um, you know take a job that accepts accepts that, so that I wouldn't have to get more education. And I think that's what I'm going to try to do, because actually what I have this idea for the podcast where I want to make it into a business, by offering resources for people who have NLD, um, where I basically would try to connect them with people who, like with somebody who might be a therapist or a job coach or like a personal finance coach, because they might be able to help them with that aspect of their life. And then I would try to um, help them with that, and also try to help, maybe, help their family out by helping them because they have NLD. So eventually I want to start that business, but in the meantime, you know, because of COVID, I'm fine with having the job that I have, and it makes sense because it's safe. As I wrap up, there are some things I would like to share with you, my audience. Please know that just because I have a podcast doesn't mean that I'm perfect in every way and don't make mistakes. I make them every day and try to learn from them. I hope that this podcast helps you feel included, not alone, inspired, safe, and encouraged to make your life a little easier for you every day or chance you have the opportunity to. I would like to hear from you, especially if you have topics that you would like to know more about relating to NLD. I know I'm not an expert, but I do know I have the living experience of having it. Also, please email me if you would want to be interviewed on this podcast, or if you need support with something related to NLD. I'm always happy to help in any way I can. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I will talk to you next Friday. Bye.